That's
And it's also that, you know, you also have help in doing damage control at that rate too. So let's say, for example, you owned a food company, and there was a rumor. I had a client, a pet food company, about 4 years ago, that had a rumor that their food was tainted with melamine from the Chinese melamine tainting scandal. Turned out there was nothing wrong with their product. It was totally legit. But this happened before Twitter, before, you know, the social web really got big. If it had happened today, I think they would have been able to get the message out there that their food was completely unaffected. But because of what happened, they lost probably a few $1 million in sales.
wow.
So, I mean, is there a tangible cost benefit to social customer relationship management? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's quite amazing how what kind of information you can pull off right now. Same thing with you know, I was actually working with a client out of Houston, a potential client out of Houston. I just realized this guy was kind of in his late 50s, early 60s, and he needed more personal interaction. So I basically put out online, is anyone capable of doing this in Houston? Literally within like 10 seconds, I got a flood of activity against this one and hooked him up with the person that I deemed was most appropriate to go and help them with that sort of stuff. So works very well.
Yeah, and it's also just, you'll notice that the speed of dissemination of information has completely changed. Like, I remember I was on some website the other day, and I saw a note on Twitter from Mark Benioff, he's the CEO of the company Salesforce, that Steve Jobs had passed away, or that the AP was reporting that he had passed away. And I mean, and this was just like literally like probably 45 minutes after it happened. And I was just thinking, my gosh, like, you know, in the past, like 10, 15 years ago, you would see things like this, but you'd see them the next day in the newspaper. Yeah. I mean, now you know this stuff within just minutes. You're like, my gosh, like, how is this even possible?
And if you're an organization, especially if you're a publicly traded company, you need to be on top of that. You need to be very transparent. Otherwise, that rumor mill just will sink you, I imagine.
Yeah, it's also easy to reach out and correct things too. So I mean, there's positives and negatives, and I think, you know, we're going a little too deeply into the public relations side of it, and maybe not enough into the collaboration side of it. I mean, there's so many examples right now of companies that are finally able to do what their customers truly want, and I think the whole reason for social customer management is to really let your enterprise or your company, whether it's a big, you know, company or a small kung fu studio, to let it be driven by customer intent. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients is this martial arts place, Soja. They're based in Oakland, California. They're, you know, kind of a medium-sized martial arts studio. It's sojamartialarts.com. And they got, you know, requests on the social web from folks who just, you know, wanted to do plain old self-defense, not fancy kung fu of any kind. So as a result, bam, they got a self-defense class that's 3 hours long this weekend. So I mean, it can be even little things like creating a one-time new product offering. I mean, where do you think Ben and Jerry's got all of their new ice cream flavors?
Yeah, got them from the crowd.
Yeah, from the crowd.
Yeah,
so it's
interesting.
And granted, the crowd's not right all the time. You might look at the crowd's ideas and be like, "Oh, that's a terrible idea. We're not doing that." But at least now you have the valve where you can hear it.
You know, I don't know where I read this, but someone had compared the different ways of communicating to a ripple versus a splash. Have you ever heard that analogy?
No.
So basically, you know, when you have a Q&A with a client, and it's a one-on-one Q&A. So somebody contacts you by phone or emails you, and then you answer that email, and you might CC one or two other people in that response. It's a problem, let's say, and you've answered that problem. That's typically a splash reaction. This online sort of networking and an exchange, a forum-based exchange, turns that transaction into a ripple, because if someone were to ask that same question in an open forum and were answered in that open forum, that person would be answered. Anybody associated with the company would see the question and answer. Anyone else who's interested in the subject matter at that time would be able to participate in an answer. And in future, anyone on the internet who has a similar question could post that question and have an answer instantly through that sort of open findability. Similar kind of approach to social CRM, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to reach out to a large base at any one time, I mean, you have to be comfortable knowing that there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to come in. And there's brands that whenever a brand or even a person puts anything out there, they have to know that whatever they put out, they're going to get stuff in return that may or may not be what they want, and they have to equip themselves with the technology to manage that. And I think there's a lot of companies that jump into social media feed first and don't understand this.
It's I always make it akin to, you go to a movie theater and you go fire and everyone runs for the door and they all get stuck, right? But the concept behind it is, you don't. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand what they're doing and the power of actually starting to engage with people too, right? So
yeah, they don't understand the day-to-day ramifications of what it takes to support that. Like, imagine if you had a sales team that only communicated with customers via email, and then you suddenly purchased 5 phone lines from the phone company, but you didn't staff anyone to answer those phone lines, and then you published the phone number on all of your literature and business cards and such. The phones are going to start ringing.
Yeah, and you have to be ready to answer them. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's just another channel.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people why someone would say, oh well, gosh, I don't think we can put a full-time resource on this. I'm like, well, do you have a full-time resource on email? And they're like, oh yeah, our whole company's on email. And then you're like, well, do you have a full-time resource on the telephone? Oh yeah, well, everyone has a telephone. Okay, well, it sounds like you're gonna need a full-time resource on this, or don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we were talking earlier about, the implementation and what kind of systems tie into social CRM. Obviously, sure. I would say that, and I'm going to take the social out. I know CRMs, CRMs and ERPs, for example, if not
Wait, what do these acronyms stand for? You're acronyming us to death.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. We should clarify the client relationship management or the enterprise resource planning stuff. Any larger system or anything that goes into a company, if not properly planned, is destined for failure. I forget, especially on the enterprise resource planning side, it's about
the failure rate. Failure rate can be 40 to 60%.
Yeah, and it's astronomical. What are the things that you see that really kill a CRM process or a social CRM process in an organization?
Actually, funny you should ask. I wrote an entire chapter about it. It's the 14th chapter of my book. I was thinking, who is the biggest expert in the world on CRM failure? There's one guy, actually. His name is Michael Krigsman. He's based in Boston, and he writes for ZDNet. He has this column. The title is horrible. It's Black Box, like when a plane crashes.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So basically all Michael writes about is IT failures of all kinds, be they enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management. And so I'm just going to read you, the 3 primary reasons that these things fail. And this is straight from the mouth of Michael. He's on Twitter, he's M. Krigsman. He's a great guy to follow. Just basically on any project that you don't want to fail, whether it's IT or not. So there's 3 things. The first one is poor strategy. So, like, basically, if the company doesn't have clear plans, goals, and objectives, that's the first thing that can kill it. The second one out of the 3 is an overfocus on technology. Because, like, companies just don't focus enough. Yeah, I mean, can you buy software and install it? Sure. Just write the check and click install. But, unless there's significant change management efforts, to engage the users, it's going to be really tough to get anybody on board. And then the last thing is kind of, this may sound a little hippy-dippy, but it's managing and minimizing culture. The problem with a lot of social customer relationship management deployments is they don't take the company's culture into account. And every company in the world has a totally different culture and different cultural values. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done before doing that. Like, I got a call from a large online training company in Southern California the other day. They want to deploy something like this. The very first thing I'm going to do is just go department to department and be like, how do you feel about this? Is this something that you culturally can embrace or your company culturally can embrace? Or you think this is a terrible idea?
Well, and, you have to deal with data hoarding as well. A lot of people are protecting their positions, thinking they don't want to share, and they're very private about their daily work activity. Some companies just can't break that nut. Have you seen that kind of scenario?
As far as like companies people within a company not wanting to deploy a social customer relationship management solution because they're afraid that if their data is shared with other persons in the company, that it will hurt their promotion path.
They'll lose control.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's why a lot of these engagements get shut down before they happen. And so, for example, if I got that vibe from, say, the entire crew of sales managers from a company, I would say, okay, here's my strategic recommendation: do nothing.
Yeah.
And watch the competitive advantage wane as you do that, I imagine. So